Hey y'all, it's Bailey with Reclaim Grace, and I am so happy you are here with me today. We are going to be working on more winter theme projects. I'm still grabbing from my to-do pile, just making items over, and some items I have been wanting to do for a little while now we are getting to. Y'all let me know what y'all think about today's projects, and we're going to get started right now. Alrighty, here we go with our first project. I picked this up maybe 6 months ago. Still working through that stash pile. It's a bookend, but it's just a single bookend. I don't have the matching pair, but I want to make this piece over. The paper on it was kind of bubbling, so I did not want to mess around with that paper. So I'm going to go ahead and get off any loose paper that will come off easily, and then I'm going to give it a good scuff sand just to make sure it's not going to give me problems in a later step. This is how it's looking. We got to make it worse before it gets better. We're going to come in with lamp white. This is an all-in-one fusion paint, and I'm going to do 2 good coats right here on this center surface, letting the coats dry really good in between, and 2 coats was really good coverage for this piece. I went back and forth with a few different options for this design, but I landed on the bird song mold. This is an oldie but goodie IOD mold, and I'm going to cast those 2 flying birds right here on the bottom left corner. So before I start putting my clay in, I'm going to dust it well with some cornstarch, and then I'm going to start pressing my IOD air dry clay into the mold, using my thumbs to get off any excess clay, and then I'm going to flip it over so the castings can easily release from the mold. This just helps it release a whole lot easier than leaving it right side up. Let gravity help you is what I'm trying to say. So now let's get these castings glued down. I'm going to come in with Titebond Quick and Thick, spread that out well, make sure it gets all the way to the edges, and we're going to get both of these castings glued on in the design layout we had already figured out. I always put too much wood glue, so I had some squeeze out here. I'm going to come in with a paintbrush and a baby wipe just to clean that wet glue up before we come in and paint over our wet castings. It's best to go ahead and paint over your wet clay and not let it dry first. This will help with the shrinking and the clay cracking. So I'm going to go over this clay, just the clay pieces, one good time before we move on to add in a little bit more detail to our bookend. This is Classic Elements, and I have fallen in love with this beaded trim from this design. So I'm going to cast several of these beaded trims and figure out where I want to place them on the bookend. I decided with adding 2 rows to the bottom front part of the bookend, and then I'm also going to add some more trimming in a later step to a different area. But for this area, I'm going to use my super glue and accelerating spray just so I can continue working on my project and I don't have to wait for the glue to dry. I'm using a little stick here to spread around that super glue, making sure it gets all the way to the edges so everything is secured very well. I'm going to use my accelerating spray to go ahead and zap that dry, but I didn't show it on camera. So here's how we're looking, and next I'm going to add the beaded trim around this part, going around the full outer oval of our bookend. I'm going to be repainting the gold, but before I can do that, I figured it would be a good idea to just base coat the gold and over the clay with just 1 coat of a black all-in-one paint. This is Ash by Fusion. Doesn't really matter. It's just going to be a good base layer and cover up that clay well before we come into our next step. I'm going to be very, very careful painting around this part, trying my hardest to stay off of that white paint. Now that my black paint is dry, I'm going to come in with Paint Couture in the bronze metallic paint. Y'all know I love this color, love this paint. We're going to go right over top of that black paint with, I went one coat in some areas and then I touched up a few places here and there. And I'm also going to take this gold around the back of the piece as well, just to finish it off nicely. And just look at that gold. It is just so gorgeous to me. But now we haven't messed with the bottom yet. We'll fix that the last step. Now let's add some age to this piece. I'm going to come in with my Pentart Fine Line Crackle. I'm using component 1 here, and I'm going to apply it over all of the white surface. I'm going to do like the inner work first, and then before I'm done, I'm just going to lightly go over the birds just so they have the same glossiness to them as the rest of the piece. I gave that like 12 hours to dry. I just happened to be done working in the shop that day. And now I'm coming in with component 2. Component 2 is a lot more runnier, so you got to be careful. You will get drips and pools, and it will dry a amber hue. I don't really care. I'm going to add age to it either way. Here's how it's looking after it's dry. So now let's bring out the crackle. I have been loving using this Pentart antiquing paste. I just use my finger wrapped in a dry towel. You can't use anything wet over this Pentart product. But I am going to come in and use a paintbrush to get into all the details of the bird, and then I'm just going to wipe it off. Since the surface is so glossy, you can pretty much wipe back as much as you want and just leave the products down in the fine line crackle. Next, to clean up the bottom, I've cut a piece of drop cloth here to just a rough size, and I'm going to use my dollar store spray adhesive very well, spray it very liberally, and then I'm going to stick it on the bottom of our bookend. I'm going to let that dry and then cut it flush, and then this project is done. I love, love, love how it came out. It's just very neutral. I love the gold. I love the crackle. It's probably one of my favorites from today's video. Y'all let me know what y'all think about this one. I priced it for $23. Moving on to our next project or set of projects. I have been finding these frames pretty regularly. They are the brass looking antique frames with the domed glass in them. If y'all remember, I tried to use one of these in that ring holder project that was missing the glass that I found not too long ago also. So we're going to get all that tape removed, get everything disassembled, and we are going to be adding some decoupage in the center of our frames. Here is this decoupage I'm using so you can get the numbers off the bottom. I have 2 designs left on this piece and I want to get them used up, and I figured they would be perfect for winter decor. I'm going to use my glass insert as a template on both of my pieces of decoupage paper, and then I'm going to cut that out so it fits well. I'm trying to make sure there's more surface at the bottom than there is the top, and you'll see why in a later step. Next, I've grabbed out just a piece of paper. It's kind of like cardstock paper that comes in a book, and I'm going to use the back inserts as a template, and I'm going to cut these out as well. We're going to need these for a backer piece. Now I've grabbed out my purple school glue, and we're going to start applying this like we would regular decoupage. I'm doing a little starter strip on the piece of that cardstock paper to get this decoupage paper or rice paper lined up. Then I'm going to peel it back and continue gluing the paper down. And I'm going to let this dry for about an hour on each piece before I move on to the next step. Now let's give this glass a good clean. It was very dirty on both sides because the piece had fallen apart pretty much when I found it. I'm using some Windex here, giving both sides a really good clean on both pieces of glass. And now we're going to start putting everything back together. So I'm going to put my dome glass in there first. Get that positioned well, and then I have some of this fake decorative snow. I'm going to dump just a little bit into the dome glass, and I'm going to go through it and pick any weird pieces out because there are weird pieces in this bag. Then I'm going to take my piece of rice paper and my backing to my picture frame and put everything together. This did take a little finagling to get everything positioned right. And then I'm going to come in with my 3 nails and stick them back through the brass frame into the wood backer piece. And this held very well. And that's it for these frames. I love how they came out. The pictures do not do them justice because of the glare from the glass, but it's really, really beautiful. I love both of them, but if I had to pick a favorite, it would be this one right here. Y'all let me know what y'all think about these. I priced them for $23 a piece. Our next project is a ceramic vase. I believe that price tag says $2.99 and it was purchased in August. So it's another piece that's just been kind of sitting in my pile. I figured I wanted to do something else with it and not just sell it as it is. So inspiration finally hit. I'm going to come in with winter foliage IOD mold. I do have a couple of these left on my website, y'all. Y'all go grab them if you're interested. I will not be ordering any more. But we're going to use the pine cones. I'm going to dust both of the pine cones with cornstarch and get my air dry clay in them, scraping off the excess with my thumbs. And then we're going to release these by flipping the mold over, and the casting pretty much falls right out. We're going to do the same thing with the other pine cone as well. I like this mold and I have used it quite a bit this season, but it is very much a winter piece as well, not just Christmas. So I figured right now this time of year, I'm done doing Christmas for my booth. So going more towards the winter vibes is my next plan before I jump right into spring. It's crazy how the retail world works. I'm sorry, y'all, I cannot talk today. I'm going to apply my Titebond Quick and Thick to the back of my castings, and we're going to get these glued down. Titebond Quick and Thick, man, it's just a really good glue. It works on so many different surfaces. I did let this glue dry for about 10 hours, 10 to 12 hours before coming back to the project. As you can see, I spray painted the whole thing black. I just wanted a primer on that slick ceramic, coating. And I figured why not have some black undertones coming through our cashmere color. So this is an all-in-one paint by Fusion. The color is cashmere. It's a gorgeous warm white color. And we're going to do 2 coats over our vase. I'm not going to go down the inside of the vase, just the exterior. And when I do the pine cones, I'm going to let my brush skip over some of the details. It's like a heavy dry brush. I did 2 coats like this. And then we're going to come back in with our fine line crackle. I know I've used it twice in this video, but I just really like this product, especially when I'm trying to add some more character to a piece. So right now I'm coming in with component 1. I'm going to brush this all over the vase, even the pine cones. And then I'm going to come in with component 2. About an hour, hour and a half later, component 1 was dry, and I could come in with component 2. Again, be careful with component 2 because it will pull up on you. You just got to watch it for a little while. Once you get that component 2 up there, it really, really takes the piece to a whole nother shiny level. We need to bring out the crackle, and we're going to use that same antiquing paste, and I'm going to do this all over every surface that I applied the fine line crackle to using a blue dry shop towel. But I did want to mention, if you do not like the glossiness of the fine line crackle, after you do this step, you can come in with their varnish, Pent Arts varnish in the matte sheen, and that takes away all of the glossiness. If you like this crackle but don't like the glossiness, that's a good method for you. And that's it for this project. I love this one too. Very simple, very winter vibes. Y'all let me know what y'all think about it. Of course, I love that crackle. I'm going to price this one for $27. For our next project, we are going to be making some snowmen. I'm going to really zoom through this first part using the foam balls. I'm rolling out some air dry clay in a pretty thinnish shape, and then I'm going to wrap the foam balls. Y'all, this was absolutely stupid of me. This was way too big of a head for our salt shaker snow globe. I mean, not snow globe, snowman. So we're going to get rid of those. I don't know why I was trying to make this harder than it had to be. Instead, I'm going to roll up just a piece of air dry clay. There's no need of the foam ball. So just rolling up a piece of air dry clay into a head round snowman shape. And I'm going to do 2 of them since I have 2 salt shakers. So here are the bottom pieces of my salt shakers. I have the lids sitting over to the side. I'm going to shove some of this fake snow down inside the salt shaker. They had such little openings, so I had to use like a little stick to get the snow to go in there. But I filled them up a little over halfway on each salt shaker. Now that we have our snow in there, I'm just going to kind of sit this still wet air dry clay head on the salt shakers and let them sit overnight to dry. I just feel like these need to be fully dry before we move on to the next step, which is this step right here. We're going to go ahead and paint up our snowman heads with Lamp White by Fusion. I just did one messy coat, and here they are. One of my heads did get a little bit of cracking, but it's okay. I ain't worried about it. So now let's make the carrot nose out of air dry clay. Just grabbed a little piece off and I'm just rolling it around in my hand. Not really trying to overthink it. That's perfect the way it is right there before I messed it up. There you go. One of the noses, I want it to be kind of like wavy, crooked, have some cuteness to it. That is this guy right here. We'll make sure I have that indentation on the bottom side before I attach my nose. And I'm going to use some super glue for all of my gluing purposes for the snowman. Wasn't that the cutest nose? Now I've just rolled up some little bitty eyeballs that I'm going to glue down on our snowman's head. And then I'm going to do the same thing. I want to create like itty bitty tiny little balls, about 5 of them that I can use for the mouth. I know I dropped this thing probably 10 times working on them, that poor nose. Now let's glue the cap of our salt shaker on as a hat. I'm using that same super glue as the glue of choice here, and I want it kind of wonky, a little crooked, a little forward, just to give it some more character. I'm going to shoot that with my accelerating drying spray. Before moving on to our second snowman, I'm going to do the same thing, a little bit of a shorter nose, and I decided to do the mouth a little bit different on this one. I wanted to add like some cheeks, but I don't know. I just decided not to with this set. I don't know. I kind of wish I would have now, but we're going to go ahead and get this cap glued down to this one too. Next, let's paint our face up. We're going to start by painting the little carrot nose with that Alchemy paint by Fusion. This is, I believe, iron. It's the perfect carrot color. Then we're going to come in with the black and do the eyes and the mouth. I will note or you're going to see it in a step coming up, I did do little dots of white over the eyes, but I don't show that step because I end up painting over the white dots because the snowman really doesn't have white dots. Either way, we're going to glue our heads down to our salt shakers now. I used hot glue and one held up well with the hot glue. The other one, its head fell off on the way to my booth. So maybe use something a little bit stronger here. Maybe E6000 would be a good choice. Or even Titebond Quick and Thick. You just have to let it dry, and I was trying to get these done. So here I am gluing the second snowman head on. I had already had those indentions on the clay, so I knew exactly where I wanted it. And now let's create the scarves and add some details. I have this gorgeous crushed ribbon I got off Amazon. I'm going to use on one of them. I'm just going to tie it around its neck. This is going to be my girly one. So she's going to have a long flowing scarf. Next, we're going to add some pipe cleaners to a few different places on our snowman. I'm going to do the first one around our lady's hat area using hot glue to attach the pieces in the back, and then I'll wrap it around the front and add a little bit more hot glue to the back area to secure it. I'm also going to come in next with a little pom-pom to put on the top of her hat, using hot glue here as well. For our next snowman, we're going to come in with this brown gold shade of crushed velvet ribbon, and I'm going to secure his a little bit differently to kind of make him look more manly. And I'm going to just use hot glue here again, securing it so it kind of stays pointing down on the salt shaker itself. And then I'm going to add some pipe cleaner to him as well. I don't think I ever added any to his hat area, just around this bottom part of the salt shaker. And I'm going to use hot glue for that too. Raise your hand if you remembered when I thrifted this big bag of vintage buttons from Salvation Army for $2.99. So many buttons in this bag. And I've just grabbed some that I kind of like, that I think I'm going to use, and start playing around with them. But I chose a kind of champagne mini buttons for our little lady right here, kind of like a frosted button, and I added 2 on her, and then I added the small mini black buttons to our manly snowman. I wanted to add a button to our more manly snowman. So I had some pretty cool options, but I don't know. I just really won't fill in this one. Then I grabbed a button that kind of resembled a penny, and I thought this one would be cool because it kind of matches his top hat. But I didn't go with this one either. I just went with one of these gold pearl beads, and I kind of wish I would have went with the penny looking one now. But I went with this gold one. I'm just adding it with hot glue. That's really it for these snowmen. Like I said, one of their heads fell off on the way to the booth, so I gotta fix him. But I love these. I got so many more salt and pepper shakers that I have been saving to do this. This was just my first little try at it. Y'all let me know what y'all think about these. They're super cute. I priced them for $13 a piece. Our last project is a redo. Do y'all remember when I made this over 2 Halloweens ago? It never sold, so I brought it home a while ago, and it's just been sitting in my stash, and we are going to give it a more wintry makeover. I started by giving it a good sand. I used that gold full transfer on the front of this, so I need to make sure no loose pieces would come off and that it was extra smooth. And then I'm going to give the piece a good wipe down. I already had this paintbrush wet and dirty, so I'm going to be using the same color. It is Cashmere by Fusion, and I'm going to give this tray, both sides, 3 good coats. It did take a little bit to cover up that black, but that's no worries. Just put thin layers so we have good adhesion. I like to start on the back side of my projects first so I can go ahead and get that out of the way. We are going to be using this gem. Emily, my friend Emily from J. Bowen and Company, sent me this last year, and I didn't get a chance to use it, so I want to get it on a project this year. It's a gorgeous snowman. I will find this paper on her website and have it linked in my description box. There was so many different ways I could lay this on my tray. I was going to go this way, kind of more off to the left, but then I really love that little snow cabin that's on the far left side, so I decided to go all the way to the right, which made the snowman kind of centered, which I didn't really love, but it's okay. This is the layout we're going to go with. I'm going to use my fingernails to crease on the inside of that tray area so we can take our scissors and cut it out. I was very nervous I was going to cut too much off, so I left about an 1/8 inch more extra from that crease line mark, just so I had a little bit of room to work with. For my decoupage medium, I'm going to use my polyacrylic matte. I typically go with this over like decoupage gel. It's just something I already have in my stash and I don't have to go buying more supplies. I'm going to use a brush here to do a starter strip, about a 2-inch strip I'm going to apply the polyacrylic to, being careful not to get any of the polyacrylic on the sides of my tray. I did have to come back in and pick this up because I had it a little crooked, but you can do that as long as you work gently, very, very gently. I picked it up because my paper is wet right now from misting it with my water bottle mister sprayer thingy. That helps with wrinkles. Like, it is a really, really good method to not get wrinkles in your decoupage paper. If you haven't tried that yet, it is a real game changer. I'm going to continue working in sections, about 2 to 3 inch sections, misting the back side of my decoupage paper and then laying it down with my brush, being very easy not to rip the paper. Once the whole piece is down, I'm going to come in with my hand in like a little sandwich baggie and just go over any spots. I really like to go over the whole piece so I know everything has made good contact with our decoupage medium, but I was trying to work out a crease line as well. As I was doing that, I noticed this corner wasn't down, so I just came back in and added a little bit more of that polyacrylic and laid that back down. Sometimes that happens to your edges especially, but just slap some more medium down and it will go right down. Now we're going over the top of it. I did 2 layers of this polyacrylic matte over the top of the tray so it had a very durable surface. Our last step is to come in with a sharp X-Acto knife and get rid of any excess paper. When I did this, I didn't have many places, but when I did it, it kind of peeled up some paint, so I needed to come in and touch that up very quickly with a small artist brush. I did a couple coats so you couldn't notice that boo-boo. Other than that, this project is done. Very simple, very cute. I'm glad I got to use this decoupage paper up. It is beautiful. Y'all let me know what y'all think about this snowman tray. I priced it for $27. And that is all I have for you today, my friends. I really hope you enjoyed these winter projects. Y'all let me know which project is your favorite down in the comments. And while you're down there, let me know what you are working on right now. I'm very interested. If you got any inspiration from today's video, hit the like button. Definitely leave a comment and consider subscribing if you have not already. Thank y'all for spending your time with me today. I'll talk to y'all in the comments. Bye.